At Ritual, we know what goes into the holiday season. The potluck planning, the gift giving, the spreadsheets. So this new year, take a moment for yourself with science-backed support that puts you first. So whether you're focusing on supporting foundational health with a clean vegan multivitamin or supporting your gut health with Symbiotic Plus, do it with 30% off your first month at ritual.com/podcast. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Just in case you missed it, it's the top 5 sports talkers of the day. Now, it's time for Dan Barrero's Top 5 at 5, driven by Borton Volvo, America's most awarded Volvo retailer.
Gaardsy with the award-winning, well, I don't know if it's really won any awards. We like to think it would if it was up for any awards. Top 5 at 5. Target Center Cage, our location, where the Wolves will take on the Atlanta Hawks about 2 hours from now.
So tomorrow night, the Gopher basketball team is in East Lansing, Michigan.
Showdown game.
To take on the undefeated in the Big Ten, 8th-ranked Michigan State Spartans.
Izzo wants no part of the Gophers right now.
Well, the Gophers have won 3 in a row. They knocked off 15th-ranked Oregon Saturday afternoon at the Barn. I was there with my family.
Yeah,
and
I heard
today
you stormed the court. It's unbelievable.
Absolutely.
It's the 15th ranked team.
Oh, it was unbelievable. Yeah. First time Oregon's in the Barn.
You were the only non-student. The rest of them were all students. It was students and Gaardsy storming the court.
You're wrong.
Oh, okay.
You're wrong.
Right.
Well, if you're going to rip me, can I defend myself?
Well, I defended you yesterday because I assumed you had your kids with you.
I did,
and that was the bit.
Yes.
So I'm assuming that's what it was. It's like, well, you want to let them in on the fun.
We were sitting in section 223 in the corner upstairs.
Yeah.
Which are usually like $20 a pop.
And did you just jump from there onto the court?
But we walked
dangerous.
Out. But as everybody's pouring in, It was a great day. I mean, the game was awesome. The crowd was really good.
And, yeah, you had a good number of people for a change.
Yes, 11,000, I think. There were 7,000 yesterday at the women's game. But as my kids are all watching the scene, they said, well, can we go? I said, no, guys, we're not going all the way down there. And then they're watching, and people are...
They start blubbering?
No, they just said, why not? And they were, my 10-year-old who argues about everything is watching people just walk up the court. They're just letting people on. They said, all right, let's go. And then we lose them. They run to Dawson Garcia and end up getting in his video that he makes. So I'll show you the picture. The video is like all college kids and then the 3 Gaardzys. And so that's why I was there. And then I told Grim, because I'm standing right below him, I said, look down. And so that's where those pictures came from, and people saw him.
Right.
So, yeah, it was, there were people older than me on there. Not many. But there were people, there were a few.
Were there any blue hairs in the on the court?
That I don't know. Yeah. I didn't look that carefully because the kids just took off on us. They just ran right to Dawson, which is fine. That's what we knew where they were going.
Well, I'll tell you, to me, the key to that game, again, obviously they got off to a ridiculously good start. And that sets a nice tone, and you know Oregon's going to come back, but they had done enough to sort of, I think, give themselves some cushion. It's Garcia, just the old, all right, you got to make 4 plays. And he made several great offensive plays, just basically one-on-one, or they set him up.
Yep.
And, every team obviously needs that, and especially given the number of close games the Gophers had, to me, there were 2 things that stood out. Him with some clutch baskets, and their offensive rebounding throughout.
Yeah.
Where they gave themselves a bunch of second chances. What was the game previously where it was the same thing?
Iowa.
Yeah, Iowa, where that was basically they kept getting a second possession, tipping the ball. It ends up out of bounds, but it's off Iowa. They get another shot in the same possession. And to me, that was a big part. At some point, the point difference was literally like 12-0 on second chance points in favor of Minnesota.
Oregon had none for the game.
For the entire game,
they
held
with
up.
0.
Yeah. So that to me that was a big part of it.
Well, and the reason I brought all that up, you just mentioned Dawson Garcia. He was named Big Ten Player of the Week for the week. He averaged 25.5 points, led the Gophers to a pair of victories. Team best 20 points in Iowa, and then I think 31 on Saturday. He was tremendous.
Very good.
And they made just enough free throws. Because they had their little mini meltdown at the end like they usually do with an offensive foul or a turnover. But they made just enough free throws to win the game, so they've won 3 in a row. They're 3-6 and take on Izzo tomorrow night. What was your favorite Jimmy Butler in Miami moment? It's been trending this way. I think it is now official. He has been suspended indefinitely now.
Oh, so it was originally, I thought it was going to be a 2-gamer. Now it's indefinite?
According to Shams, and I assume everybody else, the Heaters suspended Jimmy Butler without pay for an indefinite period of time after the disgruntled star, stop me if you've heard this before, walked out of practice on Monday. Today's Monday, right? It's the third time Butler has been suspended by the Heat in recent weeks, and it comes after he was expected to return from his second suspension tonight. The Heat play the Magic tonight, and he was expected to return tonight, but walked out of practice, and now he's suspended indefinitely. The Heat did say the suspension will last at least 5 games, which will take it through the NBA's trade deadline, which is February 6th. So it is not ending well. You and I have been Butler guys. It's
hard to defend him at this point. It's impossible to defend him. Really.
You can't be on the right side of Jimmy Butler history defending him with this, because this is bad.
No, it is bad. And one of the obvious questions is how the union's going to handle it, because the union already, I think, had protested the previous suspension. And I don't know where any of that stands. It's something maybe worthy of discussion with Johnny down the road. We were reminded during the break, he's got a $52 million option for next year. I mean, so under the classification of how do I really screw the Miami Heat, he picks that thing up. And then I don't know what they do at that point. I have no idea how it's going to be handled. But this is about, in recent memory, I can't imagine, I don't recall an uglier situation here. I mean, this is as bad as it gets between... Again, in his prime, when playing, one of the best two-way players in the league. A guy who, was the classic low draft pick, brought up from the bootstraps, blue collar. Butler.
Made his own way.
Yeah, to where he is now, which is almost impossible to defend. There is really no defending at this point. And I'd like to think somebody has the cojones to say to him, Jimmy, I know what you think you're owed, but no one's going to give it to you. Whether you deserve it or not doesn't matter.
Right.
And that being the case, you're going to have to come to Jesus with that and accept it, even or just retire. I guess that's the other direction to take, because it's about as ugly as it can get. And remember, he's got Pat Riley on the other side, and Pat Riley doesn't give a damn. He's one of the few guys in the league who has the equity to say that.
Right.
So he'll play the long game, I think, and say, you're not going to get me to blink the way you want me to blink. Meanwhile, Miami, they're not a very good team at this point, right? They're just kind of a middle of the road club. And that's the bad part about this is, I would think if there was a legitimate trade, they'd want to do it for that reason alone, even if they feel like they're bending to him. But what keeps being told is, if the deal depends on us promising Butler that he's going to get this massive
and that's always the bit
contract,
right?
We're not going to trade for him. We're not going to do that, which means he's sort of stuck in this netherworld.
That was the bit here, right?
Yes,
even
it
though
was all the way back to that.
Kind of like with Marbury, we couldn't give him the deal that he wanted when he wanted it. We had to wait a little while, I think, an extra year. He didn't want it. Same in Philly. Mm-hmm. He was mad about, you picked Tobias Harris over me, which I don't think they absolutely did.
Right.
And then now here, this is all money too. Yeah, the Heat are 22-22 right now in the 8th spot. So they're a play-in team in the East, but certainly not playing very well. Minnesota Wild not playing great, although thank God for the Chicago Blackhawks. Your Chicago Blackhawks have seemed to be the tonic for them the last couple of weeks when they've needed it.
Yes.
They lost to Utah 4-0, and then they lost on Hockey Day, Minnesota, of all days. That hallowed day.
Who didn't? The Golden Gophers lost, too. Well, they tied, lost in the
shootout.
After getting just obliterated in the Friday night. He gave up 8 goals the last 2 periods.
9-3.
The first game against Michigan State.
Yeah, 9-3. They lost 5-4 to the Wild to Calgary, but beat the Blackhawks yesterday 4-2. They've got a couple of days off before a Canadian road trip. And I think Lunani is on that road trip.
I think you're right.
And he is calling in, I think, earlier tomorrow because of that.
That's exactly right.
Just reminded myself of that as we do the top 5 at 5.
Yep.
So Louis will be on the call when they take on the Maple Leafs on Wednesday as well as the Canadiens on Thursday. But right now, the Wild are in the 3rd spot in the Central Division right now. Point total, let me give you the updated point total. I think it's 62. It is 62. So they're a couple of points clear of Colorado for the final the first wild card spot right now.
Both, as we've talked about a couple times, both of our winter pro sports teams have been very mediocre at home. They're both basically 500 teams, and the Wild continue to be one of the best road teams. So they're probably just as happy that they're hitting the road. But we all, I think, would agree that you're going to have to get to a place where you're playing better at home as well. And now, Kaprizov's back, but it doesn't look like he's back.
Right.
And we still got a couple people out hurt. So I guess right now we're all waiting. The danger of just saying we're just waiting for everybody to be healthy means that you're assuming that once everybody's together, everything's going to be fine.
It's going to click.
Clearly does not sit well with Billy Guerin, who savaged the club via Russo just the other day. I think might have even been yesterday, basically saying there's no excuse for this dip that we have taken. So it's funny because Guerin often is more than willing to use the injury alibi.
You sure?
He didn't in this case. He seems bugged by something more fundamental than that, and he pretty much went scorched earth.
Finally, the Super Bowl's in a couple of weeks. You'll hear it right here on the Fan, and it's set. And it's a game that a lot of people are disappointed in. The Philadelphia Eagles routed the Washington Commanders 55-23, and Kansas City outlasted the Buffalo Bills. Came down to a fourth down play at the end. Josh Allen heaved it, was not connected, did not catch it. 32-29, Kansas City rallies to beat Buffalo. And so it's the Chiefs and Eagles in a Super Bowl rematch from a few years ago.
Well, it was, because the Bills held Kansas City to the field goal. It was set up for, okay, this is our moment now.
Josh Allen redemption.
The door has been opened. We got to go down and at least get a field goal. And if we're doing it right, if we're ever going to actually, beat this dynasty of a team, we got to go out down and score a touchdown, and they did neither.
Their first down play really just torpedoed the whole thing.
It did, actually.
It was very strange.
Yes.
Just, we're just going to hand it off and run around right end and see what happens.
Yeah, that did not
3-yard loss.
Very, very well. And then they were curious about, they continued to alternate. Maybe Cook was hurt. I don't know. It seemed like you'd want him on every play in that.
He was awesome on that first drive.
He was
of the second half.
Yeah, in the second
half. Touchdown, too.
Yes, very good. So, again, you got a chance. The Chiefs have a chance to make history. So I think it'll be very well watched. I think when you get down after the grumbling, it's going to be, the two really good teams, actually, and maybe I'm going to see history. And so even if you dislike both teams, I think people will be paying attention.
Well, I'm a fraud because my tweet, but although I admitted my fraudulence, because my tweet last night or this morning was, my tune will change in 2 weeks when it's Super Bowl Sunday. Right. But as of right now, I'm just like, oh man. And I'm not anti-Kansas City. I don't know why I'm feeling this way about the Chiefs. I think it's because I'm down about Josh Allen. I wanted it to be the Bills moment, and it's obviously not going to be. And it was set up perfectly. So I think I'm just down about that. You know my feelings on Philly. I'm sure in 2 weeks I'll be watching it. I'll probably be hosting a great Super Bowl party with the neighbors. But right now I'm just kind of meh, as the kids would say.
All right. So I've mentioned a couple times there's a Twitter thread of some big mathematics brain who attempts to explain exactly why it's not as easy as you think it might be to put something in the ball that would make it categorically certain whether Josh Allen broke the plane or not on the fateful 4th and inches. I'm going to read from that. We're going to get back to that whole subject as it pertains to the officiating controversies yesterday, and plenty of time to get into some other topics as well as we take it all the way until 6:30 from the Target Center cage, where fans are already starting to assemble.
Yeah.
Wolves back in action tonight against the Atlanta Hawks right here on our flagship.
Grand in your hand, Maxo?
Yes, sir. The Fan wants to give you a shot to put $1,000 in your hand with our national cash contest. Enter the keyword bank at KFAN.com now for your shot at winning. That's keyword bank. Enter it now at KFAN.com.
Wolves.
Get ready to experience the raw energy of 9 Inch Nails live. Trent Reznor and the band are hitting the road for an electrifying tour you won't want to miss. Catch them at XL Energy Center on August 17th for a night of unforgettable music and intense performances. Tickets go on sale this Wednesday at noon. Get all the details at KFAN.com. Keyword calendar.
5 o'clock hour of the Bumper to Bumper show continues. Gaardsy, are you familiar with a gentleman named Sam Schwartzstein?
I don't think I am.
Sam is identified as, let me see. Let me get to the actual tweet. He's affiliated with something called TNF Prime Vision. And previously, he was the creator of the XFL 2020 rules and technology. So, he seems to know what he's doing.
Authentic.
He seems authentic, and he's a guy who is weighing in on everybody's gripe right now is, how can we not have more sophisticated technology to see whether the ball crosses the plane for a first down, blah, blah, blah.
So TNF Prime Vision is analytics and insights from sports on Amazon Prime Video.
That's also true. You're right. I'm glad you added that.
So that's what that is.
So bear with me here, because this is going to take think a little bit of time, but I think it's worthy of better understanding beyond the being mad that we haven't figured out a way. So here's the way he puts it. Hold on, I hit the wrong place. If you think the NFL, this is actually from Seifert, who is our link here. If you think the NFL should use technology to spot the ball, you should first make sure you understand football and the relevant technology. Sam Schwartzstein does. So he suggests that we all read what he has to say.
And he writes.
Here's what he has to say. Notes on using optical tracking for measurements. There is already a chip in the ball in the NFL. It's in the middle of the ball on the pane, parentheses, 4 leather panes to make up the football, opposite where you inject air. What you are pointing out here is optical tracking technology. There are between 6 to 12 cameras at an event that can triangulate the position of the ball. But this only works if the ball is 75% visible by light to let all the cameras see the ball and track. Football also has 3 concepts foreign to tennis and soccer. Those are the 2 sports people. In soccer, they're doing it. In tennis, they're doing it.
Yep.
He says, here's the 3 concepts that are different about football. 1, possession. 2, down by contact. 3, shape of the football. In football, we need to establish possession of the football. When the player crosses X plane, do they have the ball? All other line technology is based on the ball relation to a line. Football is about relationship between the ball and player, as well as ball's relationship to the location. Are you with me so far?
Kind of.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Down, this is a second item that's, again, different from tennis and soccer, by contact. Down, you can have the ball, but then we need to establish when and where the player was down. This is a judgment call based on the possession of the player. Add in the fact that a player can be down, but then he hasn't been touched. So then you have to wait until you can see that player has actually been touched. And then there's 3, the shape of the football. You're looking at tennis and the ball. It's a sphere. In a sphere, every point of the ball is equidistant from the center of the sphere's mass. On a football, an oblong spheroid, it's different the further you get to the tip of the ball. Then we rotate it up and down, and we have to... there's a typo.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. Have to further.
Finally,
right.
Let's say we have a play that meets all of these conditions. Yeah, you're right. Get this right. The only time it's valuable is when we have met these conditions and the 40 game cameras at the game could not identify the location of the ball. The UFL and the NFL in preseason have solved one part of the puzzle, which is the measurement, but you have to still place the ball based on possession, down, and shape of the ball by the judgment of the official, then measure with cameras, which solves nothing more than just losing the chain or than something the chain's coming onto the field. I have a way to solve this problem and have talked to some people about getting it accomplished, but it would change the entire mechanics of the officials and possibly slow the game down. Now, what that is, I don't have any idea. Now, he's not the last word on it, but what he seems to be saying is it's not as easy as it looks. I don't think he's necessarily saying that makes it impossible, because it sounds like he's got some ideas there. And I will grant the obvious point that, we were talking earlier with Alan Horton that the only sport unaffected from a rating standpoint by the fact that there's a million ways to watch whatever you want to consume is professional football. And what does that mean? That means they have more money than they could possibly know what to do with.
Right.
Right? So you'd think, well, then this is the league, the one league that can say with a straight face, we can spare no expense and still have plenty of profits for all of our lovely owners, including Jerry Jones, right? It's not like they're going to suddenly break even.
Right.
And that then every step should be taken. I don't know behind the scenes, and it's a good conversation that we can have maybe with Kevin Seifert tomorrow if he joins us, that, we're all assuming that at least behind the scenes, they're working on this. Even if it's not there, or their technology is still less certain than people want to believe it should be, that they have people literally in charge, that this is all they do is work towards a moment where we can get a more definitive, accurate call on big plays rather than an official coming from the top side, another official sprinting from the other side,
right,
and the two of them hoping to figure it out or bringing the two together to get what the right spot is. But he's making it sound like tennis and soccer are not good analogies.
They're not the good examples.
There are so many differences between those sports and football. So I know it's not what you want to hear. I know it's not what the average Rube wants to hear, but it just might be the truth.
Well, I would like to know what his ideas are. I wish he would have done another tweet thread.
That's coming tomorrow.
Is it? You think so?
I would assume.
Or maybe he's got a book or a podcast behind a paywall to let people know. And if he says he's been in contact with people, because obviously if he's working with Thursday Night Football and Prime Video and he's tight on this, he's got the bona fides. So I'd be interested to hear what he has to say about that, if there's a way to maybe do it, and what that means in terms of the mechanics of the officiating and how that would change. I don't know.
Here's also what Sam says. Chains are chipped already, too, as in they have chips. It's why we were able to do such cool things in Prime Vision. But it's one thing to paint the field and do cool things than it is to administrate a game. We need all this to work and not have the cameras able to see. It has to be perfect to replace the current version. Why, when I did a version of the dynamic kickoff in the XFL, I had a 90% return rate. I think he's trying to pat himself on the back for other things. He's really been ahead of his time.
Well, he's apparently responsible for the dynamic kickoff, which people don't like.
Yeah, so maybe that's hurting his credibility.
It might, maybe.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that he doesn't know what he's talking about on here. So we'll see. I mean, it's a fair conversation to have, but it sounds as if there's still some peculiarities to the game of football that don't make this as automatic as, there's got lasers, we triangulate, we does all that. Because, in all honesty, if it were as easy as people want to believe, then why wouldn't the NFL already do it?
They already would have done it, probably.
I got to believe they would. I mean, to a certain extent, because I don't think they like these controversies, right? I mean, you could say, well, it's talkable.
That's it.
And it keeps the game interesting to people. But I don't really think this is more aggravating to people, and I don't think the league would say, is it? In other words, if there was a chip that definitively said first down or not, we don't have to talk about it. Forget the officials coming from each side. It's first down, or it's not a first down. I don't think that people would be less interested or say, well, now I can't debate because I think he got it, and the guy at the other end of the bar thinks he didn't get it. I don't think the NFL loses anything in that regard. Do you?
No, I just don't. It doesn't make sense to me, though, that it should be this complicated, that it's not perfect.
I'm with you there.
With the way that you can track anything and you can see anything, it just doesn't make sense that they can't figure out a way to make it more definitive than what it is now. And because it is, the guys that are in charge of seeing it, they can't see anything.
Maybe what we should do is try to get is it Schwartzman?
I think that's what his name was.
Let's try to get him on. I mean, it sounds like he doesn't mind the
attention.
The attention. Does he?
No, you're probably right.
What's the name here?
Sam Schwartzstein.
Yeah.
Or Schwartzstein.
Yeah, that's it. Let's see if we can get Sam on. And maybe he can, if indeed he's got an idea, maybe he'll spill it to us, or maybe we'll get a little more information. And he'll have to dumb it down with us, because I'm not very good at this stuff, Matt, when with math's involved and spatial relations is involved, and geometry literally was my worst subject in school. I can't even begin to deal with what geometry represents at all.
I don't recall how I did in geometry, but with my track record on the air, I would say it was probably the beginning to the end.
You're bad at math. You can be bad at math and good at geometry, I think.
Okay.
And vice versa.
Maybe I was.
I was decent at math, even though no one will believe it on the basis of the on-air conversations we have.
A lot.
But I was awful at geometry. Awful.
I feel like I was okay at geometry.
Well, you might have been.
Maybe.
It's possible.
I don't remember.
Bottom of the hour break, reaction, hit the Twitter line, because we are on location today. Dan Barrero, KFAN, JG, KFAN? Gaardsy, that's right.
At Gaardsy.
2 A's.
I've stripped all affiliation from the fan. Dan Barrero.
So weird.
Bumper to
the whole
bumper.
Thing is very strange.
Gates are open at Target Center.
Are they?
Yeah, they just opened them up.
There's a Trae Young. I wonder if this kid knows Trae Young's not playing.
He's going to have a rude awakening when he walks in.
Well, he'll probably figure it out. They're calling it loser-proof for the Wolves tonight. Loser-proof.
Let's hope so.
Start of a stretch that eventually includes 8 out of 10 games at home, as Horton reminded us. You got to make some hay now, man. You got to start putting the thing together.
Yes.
To give yourself a record where you're not sitting there messing around with the play-in nonsense. Please, let's not mess with the play-in.
Right now, you're
nonsense.
2 games out of the 6th spot. They're in the 7, a half game up on Phoenix.
Who's 6? Lakers?
Clippers.
Lakers
are
have been
5
hot lately.
Lakers are 5.
Yeah, interesting.
And then Denver, who we just routed, they are in the 4 spot. We're 4 games back of them.
We'll actually try to get to some of the football from yesterday, and get into a couple of other topics as well, the rest of the way. And if you have comments, like I said, you can reach us, not the usual way. The Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line not really available to us. So hit the X machine, as we're now calling it. Back in a minute.
host of the Bad Friends podcast and comedian Andrew Santino is coming to the Pantages Theater in February. Tickets for his newly added February 21st, 9:30 p.m. show are on sale now. For full details, head over to KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
All right, we are indeed back. Much to get to our final hour of the show from the Target Center Cage location, where folks are already assembling. The gates are already open. The Wolves back in action, hosting the not very good and extremely injured Atlanta Hawks tonight. Could be a recipe for disaster, but certainly shouldn't be at this late date. There was couple things outside the officiating from the NFC and AFC title games yesterday that got my attention. And as you say, there are a lot of people rooting for the Buffalo Bills to give Allen a chance to finally break through. He's had a remarkable, maybe his best season yet. And I'm going to stick with what I talked about in anticipation of Kansas City winning again. I think this is a Jordan thing. I really do. I think.
Yep. It's starting to come up more now.
More and more, and you heard it a little bit, I think, wasn't on the broadcast, but somewhere else, that that's what it's starting to feel like. You know, we can argue about whether Mahomes is going to end up being the best ever, but what he's accomplished before hitting 30 is literally unprecedented.
Yep.
And there is not any doubt that, you know, you could say, well, how much of it's him, how much of it is his head coach? They are inseparable to a certain extent, just like I think Parcells and Brady were.
Belichick and Brady.
I should say Belichick and Brady were. And
Phil Jackson and Michael Jordan.
Exactly.
Yep.
And so, again, as much as we ordinarily want to go with I guess Josh Allen can't win the big one. I guess Lamar Jackson can't win the big one. At some point, you have to say, well, that's true, but are they in that unfortunate bad luck situation where they happen to be playing at the same time that one of the greatest players in history was performing? And to me, it's more and more like that. I think it becomes inescapable at some point. Now, there were still enough plays you could say for Allen to make.
Yeah.
But I think, again, if you have one guy, was it 5 or 6 straight AFC title games? Whatever.
I thought it was 7.
Yeah, well, it's 7. I asked you this before. I think it's 7. You go, well, this is extraordinary stuff, right? This isn't just another really good quarterback. This is a guy who is historic. And we all know how historic Jordan was, and we've gone through the names of the great players who were deprived of that last step, largely because I think most of us would say not because they weren't good enough, but because they kept coming up against an extraordinary blend of talent and iron will, the combination of both. And I think, again, Mahomes, because he's kind of matter of fact, but the way he does his manner is kind of matter of fact. You leave out the fact that he's a killer. No one to me should doubt that Patrick Mahomes, no matter how easygoing he comes off during the interviews, is a killer. He is a guy. He is another one of those guys who absolutely wants to take your heart out and stomp on it, even if he's that ruthless in a way that all good winners and competitors are. And so I can't go too far down the road of, well, Allen's overrated, Jackson's overrated, any more than, Patrick Ewing was overrated, or Charles Barkley was overrated, or Stockton and Malone were overrated. They just had the bad luck of being born at the wrong time, and we're seeing it, I think, again with Mahomes, maybe with the combination of also having a quarterback or a head coach who clearly saw something in him at the beginning that no one else did,
right,
and has literally gotten the most out of what that player represents.
Because Allen didn't play poorly yesterday.
No.
It didn't seem like the moment has ever been too big for him. Somebody had the numbers, and he
started shaky.
Yep.
He almost threw 2 picks early that were like old Josh Allen. Was like, well, calm down a little bit.
And they were down, right? They had to come back.
Yes.
They were down, and they had to come back, but he brought them back.
He did.
I mean, the pass that he had to put them ahead, the touchdown in the back of the end zone, that was beautiful, right? He had some great runs. Somebody had the numbers that in terms of playoff games, and I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but no one had lost while putting up those numbers in a playoff game ever. And he's had it 3 times.
3 times.
All against Mahomes.
Well, go back to last year.
Yeah.
They're up with 13 seconds to go.
I think that was 2 years ago.
It was 2 years ago. 13 seconds to go. Whatever it was. It's like it's the old deal of, well, you left too much time on the clock for Patrick
13
Mahomes.
seconds.
Because there's been no one like him. There was nobody like Michael Jordan. There's nobody like, and I don't want to do that. Was Mahomes? Are you saying he's Jordan like he's the best player ever? Maybe
we might be seeing
it. It's probably too early to say that, but he's already ascended to a place that very few other quarterbacks. I mean, who else is on the list? Montana and Brady?
Probably.
I mean, I don't think there's many others
that did it for basically a decade now, which is what he's done. That has been to the championship game as many times. He's the only one that, I mean, what Brady's done is insane, right? Was it 7?
7.
In 10 Super Bowls, I think?
That sounds right.
And so he's the only one that can come close to that, and he's 29 years old. Brady played until he was 40 plus. So he theoretically has another decade to do what Tom Brady did. And it's not like, obviously, he's more mobile than Brady was. His legs are more of a factor than Brady was.
And his legs were huge for the first time, and this is another example of his brilliance. He's really not used his legs all that much this season at various times. He was the better runner last night. It's the old deal of whatever has to happen for us to win, I'm going to do it.
Right.
And he did it again last night.
And he can do it, but he doesn't have to do it.
Right.
And on a couple of those drives, too, it was Brady-esque in that he just ran the play that they were supposed to run where something was beautifully schemed. He found it. He saw it. He did it. He's not a guy, I guess my point is, that as his mobility goes down, if he does play until he's 40 or 45, who knows, that's not going to hamper his game.
No.
It's not like a Lamar Jackson situation where that's a huge part of his game.
Right.
He's perfectly fine just chilling in the pocket if he needs to. His pocket, by the way, extends like 10 yards deep. That's what always amazes me, too. Part of the reason why it's so hard to sack him is he'll drop back an extra 10 yards, and it doesn't matter because he can get the ball wherever he wants to go. I noticed that again yesterday, and I know they sacked him. They finally got him, right before Buffalo got the ball back. There's times where he doesn't always step up to avoid pressure. He'll just step back and still find a way to get it to where it needs to go. It's got to be really hard to play against him.
100%.
Whether you're the other quarterback or you're the defense.
We also learned, or at least I learned, about a power that officials had that I did not know existed yesterday. And this was when the Chiefs are deep in Buffalo territory, correct? And we're seeing. Wait a minute.
No, you're Commanders Eagles.
It's Commanders Eagles. I got too much. Yeah, Commanders Eagles. It's Eagles are basically inside the 2, and I can't remember the name of the very good linebacker, almost a monster back kind of a guy, who decides, all right, they're going to do the tush push. I'm sick of their ease with getting that yardage necessary for the touchdown, so I'm going to just try to time the snap and jump over the top. And he didn't time it well, so it ends up being encroachment. And they line up again, and he does it again over the top. Then the Eagles, for some reason, I guess, enjoying the game, even though now every penalty now is worth an inch.
Right.
It's half the distance, so it's another inch.
Frankie Louvu, is that who you're thinking of?
That's the guy.
Yeah.
And so they in the third case, it looks like the Eagles are trying to draw them offside with a cadence issue. So on the third occasion, a different player just jumps, right? The more traditional jump. At which point the referees announce, by the way, we just let
Kid Hockley,
the Commanders, know that we reserve the right on the basis of these 3 plays in a row to, if we deem it necessary, we will award points to the Philadelphia Eagles.
Here's the quote. Washington has been advised that at some point the referee can award a score if this type of behavior happens again. That was on an official's mic.
I've never heard that before.
Never.
I didn't know that rule existed. Apparently it does. It was unnecessary because the Eagles scored the next time. And after the 2 over-the-top attempts, they announced a different thing. They said the Eagles, or I should say the Commanders, have been informed that if that continues, we will make this an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, right?
Yep.
And then after the third one, which I think was just more standard, they went with the old, hey, one more time, we're just going to give him the damn touchdown and go home.
I like how he said, for now, it's half the distance to the goal, and it's still second down.
It was crazy. So a rule that I think probably, I'm going to say 99% of the general population had no idea existed, that there was ever that sort of discretionary power in the hands of officials. Now, do we know, because I assume the historians have looked it up, how often have points actually been awarded on this basis? Do we know?
I saw one of the guys on Good Morning Football had a piece. I didn't see it. I didn't watch it. But he did have a piece on why they did eventually come up with that rule. And it is, if you go to Article 1 in the NFL rulebook, touchdown plays, they just say a touchdown is scored and the ball becomes dead, win. And then they outline all the different scenarios, which all of us know, right? Whether you run it in, you pass it in, it gets fumbled, it gets recovered. It's number 5 in Article 1. The referee awards a touchdown to a team that has been denied one by a palpably unfair act.
So that's like a palpable sense of dread.
Palpable sense of dread.
Yeah.
So I never knew it existed. I don't know when it has happened, but somebody did have when it happened or why they had to put it in there, because the reason why there's rules, right, is because someone along the lines has broken them. And it's not like they just came up with this when Abner Doubleday invented football or James Naismith. Something had to have happened along the line where they had to add a palpably unfair act clause.
Here's what's interesting about it. I guess if you play it out, it could be used as a strategy if, let's say, the team trying to score, the clock is down to like the final few seconds. And you go, we're just going to keep purposefully encroaching. And the penalty is shorter and shorter. It still doesn't get you over the goal line, and then, I guess you wouldn't run out of time because the game can't end on a defensive penalty.
But maybe one time they time it up right.
Maybe they do.
Maybe you drain enough clock where you time it up. Yeah, it's absurd to think about it that long, but they were obviously just trying to hope that they time it up and get lucky, or that Philly jumps, because that was the other thing. Hopefully, I heard that on the radio call because, as I told you before, I was listening to this on the fan as it was happening. You hope that Philly just jumps somehow or gets a little jumpy, and all of a sudden now they're backed up 5 yards. It's not the half. They don't get the half. They don't get the extra inches back.
True.
You got to go back 5 yards. That's, I guess, what you're hoping for there.
Let me get to a tweet that came in a little bit earlier, Mahomes related.
I'm trying to figure out, by the way, if it's ever been used. Okay. So while you're reading that, I'm just kind of Googling.
Michael Jordan didn't make his 5th NBA Finals until he was 33. Brady didn't make his 5th Super Bowl until he was 35. Mahomes just made his 5th before he turned 30. MJ and TW are my favorite athletes of all time. Enjoy the greatness with Patty. And, of course, he's one of us, right? I mean, he grew up here.
He did.
Was he born here? I don't remember.
I don't know.
Obviously, his father was a pitcher for the Twins.
Pat Sr.
Yeah. But I don't remember if he was born. Yeah.
Want me to check his birthplace?
Double check the birthplace. I'm trying to figure out if he'd be eligible for my new podcast, Not One of Us. Or not.
Well, because if he was born here, he's not.
Born here, he's not one. Yeah, he can't. He's disqualified. That's the deal.
That would be tough.
Yeah, that'd be
because you definitely get him.
Oh, I don't think there's any question I'd get him as long as we want.
He would want to be part of this.
Yeah.
He was born in Tyler, Texas. Looks like.
Tyler, Texas. So he spent some time growing up here, hanging around the dome,
right?
As a little tyke. But we don't think he was born at Fairview Southdale.
He was not born in the birthing center.
Okay,
floor 4.
Okay, fair.
No, I think you're born on floor 2, and then they move you up to floor 4.
I don't remember. I think we were there, but you were there. Yeah.
I was there 3 times.
Yeah,
Tyler, Texas. Unfortunately, so he is eligible for your Not One of Us, but he's never spent any time here besides the time with his dad.
I will tell you this. This would be obviously the first time any team in the Super Bowl era wins 3 in a row, right?
Yep.
And I will tell you that I am kind of gobsmacked we are even this close, because I assumed, like a lot of people, in this day and age, the age of free agency and all the exterior challenges that are involved in winning, it's not going to happen. It's just impossible that any team could even be in position to win their 3rd in a row. Because I think, isn't this the first time any of the previous ones
have ever
actually gotten to the bowl itself?
Exactly right.
That's what I thought. So, and I tended to agree with that. As good as I knew, we all knew Mahomes is, and Reed is like, well, no, there's injuries, there's too much weirdness, there's up and down, there's things that are going to happen. So I guess, and I like that story as much as people are bitter about the calls, and we both agree that the last 4th down call was a bad one. that the wrong call was
that Josh Allen got it.
Absolutely made. I've said this before. Sports are more interesting, I think, when dynasties are around. And I know the story itself gets old and it gets tiresome, and you don't want to see any more shots of Kelsey's girlfriend in the crowd, in the beautiful people's seats, and then down in the victory stand, and then there's there's Kelsey
and his mom,
and then they show her Swift back and forth. And it gets old. I get all that.
Yep.
But again, sports is more interesting when there are great teams to play off of, whether you hate them or like them. To me, they set the standard, and that's why I'm not one of those people who rolls my eyes and gets bothered when greatness is sustained.
I'm with you most of the time. For some reason, yesterday bothered me. I don't know if it was the official stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if I felt like they were so certain about that fourth down, and then Kansas City went right down and scored and put Buffalo right back into the meat grinder after it had come back. I'm usually with you, and what I appreciate about it, too, is it's not just that they win these games. It's that they were once again the number one seed. Mm-hmm. Really not wowing anybody all season, right? But finding ways to win every single week. It was a big thing the whole season. Is Kansas City really this good? Are they living on borrowed time? The whole bit. And at the end of the day, they're the one seed, and they're hosting another AFC championship game, which was the track for a long time until I think last year they had to go to Baltimore, right, to win it on the road. So they've done it, and they get what I appreciate about it is kind of what we talked about with the 96 Bulls when they won all those schedule loss games that we talked about, including 3 games in 4 nights and the whole bit, is Kansas City doesn't come into town sleepily.
No.
Like when they come to town, they're the show. They're the circus act. They're the Beatles. Everybody knows they're here.
And everybody wants to beat them.
And everybody wants to beat them. It's a bigger game for the opponent than it is for them for 17 weeks, basically. And they found a way, certainly this year, it's always been the way since they won their first Super Bowl, but certainly the last couple of years and certainly this year, they find a way when they're getting everybody's best shot, theoretically, to continue to win, even if it's not pretty, to give themselves the number one seed so they can host all the way through, which for them still matters. For other teams, it obviously hasn't, and they can win anywhere, but to keep it in Kansas City, that's what I appreciate about it is it's hard to be this good, this long, this consistently, where it's not even like they were a 9-8 team that won a bad division and then got hot just because Mahomes, like they've won all season long again, taking everybody's best shot. And that in this era is really, really difficult.
I think the stat I saw in the home playoff games that Mahomes has played in, he's got something like 29 touchdowns and 2 interceptions.
Yeah.
And
I think Burrow's the only one that's beaten him there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's ridiculous. And the one there is a one, as much as people say, Brady and Mahomes are such different quarterbacks, I'll harken back to what we talked about much earlier in the show. One thing they absolutely share is the ability to make the simple pass time after time, accurate throws that is obviously not as easy as it looks because nobody else does it as often. It's just the simple, obvious play, and it's not athletic. Sometimes even with the Mahomes, it doesn't look all that athletic.
Right.
It's kind of boring. It's not as impressive as you see. Who's the Chargers quarterback? Everybody raves about.
Justin.
He'll make some throws downfield. My God.
Yeah.
Did you see where he put that ball? And that's all great, but every simple play, they recognize the receiver and they make the throw. They just make the simple throw time after time after time. And as boring as it is, if it gets you down the field, then you're often going to be in position to win another title.
You just used the word I was going to say. It's what Mike Conley talked about.
Yeah.
To use your quote from earlier in the show, it's the best. And Brady's even talked about this too. To be special, you don't have to be extraordinary. You have to do the simple things over and over and over again. The Wolves, to bring it to where we are tonight, haven't done that enough this season.
Right.
That's why their record is what it is right now. They did it a year ago, as Alan Horton reminded us of. But there is an art to it and a skill to it and a talent to it that when the simple plays present themselves, you make them more than the other team. And, yeah, yesterday was a perfect example of that.
100%.
It wasn't anything crazy that they did. And even Buffalo, to put themselves in that situation, wasn't anything crazy. They were running the ball. Allen made a couple of really nice throws. But when they needed to get it, when they were dropping back to pass for that last third down that we've seen now a million times on the screens here in the cage, I had no doubt they were going to figure it out somehow. Like either he was going to run or it was going to be Kelsey. I just felt like they know what they're doing. They're going to find it. And it was a guy I've never even heard of and couldn't even tell you what his name was now that got to play for him.
And that's all the more reason why nobody should second guess the decision to go for it on fourth down with 2 minutes to go. Because
the Bills?
The Bills.
Oh, that was a no-brainer.
You never know you're going to get, you know, if you hand the ball over, he's going to get first downs.
Right.
That's the deal. So, to me, that was the easiest decision of the day, even though, it ended up being a pass that he had to throw under duress, cornerback blitz, great blitz call. But you have no choice. To me, it's not even one you agonize over after the fact because you go, well, who's the quarterback over there? It's Mahomes. Well, no, then we do we have the ball right now? Well, then we have to try to keep it because we may not get the ball back.
And
again.
what was it, 4th and 5?
Yes, it was not a ridiculous
They've
number.
gotten about half of it on that third down.
Yeah, maybe 4th and 7, whatever.
Yeah, it wasn't 4th and 26 or something desperate. No, that was 100%.
They call it 4th and Midland. All right, let's do this. Let's make this the top of the hour pause. Maybe we'll get back to some Wolves talk here. We are at Target Center, where the Wolves will be back in action on the Fan tonight against the Atlanta Hawks.
3 starters and 1 reserve out for Atlanta tonight.
Well, most
recent Alan Horton
Dallas
tweet.
had 7 players out, and we still made that an adventure before we kind of pulled away.
Trey Young, Dyson Daniels, Jalen Johnson, and Larry Nance Jr. 3 starters, 1 reserve, all out tonight for the Atlanta Hawks.
That explains a lot. All right, we'll pause here and then wrap up. Well, not wrap up. We still got a full half hour to go. Don't go away.
Wild Wednesday is sponsored by Jim Beam, the official bourbon of the Minnesota Wild. Are here all season long. Listen every Wednesday through March for your chance to win tickets.
Final half hour of the Monday edition of the Bumper to Bumper program. I don't know how much people can hear it in the background. We have like a little bit of a musical accompaniment in the Skyway level.
The Skull Line?
Greeting people who are on their way to see your Minnesota Timberwolves take on the Atlanta Hawks. Some percussion stuff going.
They're there most nights, I think.
Are they there most nights?
Yeah, they look familiar.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, it adds to a little bit of the ambiance.
Lets you know where you are.
Here at the
House of Pain.
The Skyway level. How would you describe... Obviously, there's frustration about the Wolves at this point. They had a great game against Denver, maybe their best game of the season. Denver's been playing really, really well, and they got taken. I mean, the Wolves, it felt like a game from a year ago, quite frankly.
Yep.
Where they just didn't let up. Now, they shot really well, and that always helps. But how quickly in 2024-25 do the home crowds start to grumble and turn on the basis of the inconsistent nature of their performance this year?
I mean, Johnny would know better. Obviously, Alan would. But from what I've gathered, the couple of games that I've been to, it's quick. I think it's quick. But it also depends on what it is. I think what bothers people most, and this even goes back to a couple of years ago, what bothers people most is when you watch a shot go long and you see 3 Wolves just stand there. And somebody,
and the Memphis Grizzlies grab another offensive
or
rebound.
anybody. I mean, and some 5'7" guard runs in there, grabs it, where there was 3 Wolves by it, and then they have a kick out 3. Like, I think that's the stuff that really bothers people because what got this whole thing reignited, at least from my perspective, and I'm sure we've talked about this, when it got reignited in the Pat Bev year, the first play-in game, the first play-in year against the Clippers, it was because everybody that came here felt like they were getting the Wolves' best, like, honest effort, the little things, the details, more often than not. And I think that's when people get mad. When they're sloppy on the details and feel like the Wolves are being arrogant or immature about it. I don't think, if they're playing well and missing shots, I don't think people, what was the other night, the Golden State game, when they got down like 30-2 and couldn't make a shot? I don't think people, like Finch was bitter. I don't think fans were that mad. They were getting good looks. They weren't going in. Steph was doing it. But it's the offensive rebounds. It's the transition defense. When that stuff is absent, I think that's when people do get mad.
Yeah.
And I would say I would agree with them.
Yeah, there's probably some truth to that. And I know probably internally, I'm guessing in the organization, go, God, we just came off the conference finals, man. Give us a little bit of leeway. But it actually, like, I think my answer to that would be is it's the exact opposite, is that you've raised the standard enough that people, especially with the history of this team, they're not interested in going back even 1 year. They're just not, on the basis of what all the sort of scar tissue many Wolves have from decades of incompetence. They're just not ready to say, okay, yeah, it was a really good year last year, so we're going to give you the benefit of the doubt. It's just not going to work that way. And good teams don't want it to, because good teams, they want fans that are demanding and adhere to a higher expectation.
Well, what I'll say to that is, because Johnny one night, and we've probably talked about this on the radio, Johnny one night tweeted out, fans are booing, seems a little quick.
Yes, I remember that.
And said, I'm sorry, but when the press releases before the season we've sold 11,000 season tickets. Our season tickets are sold out. If you go to Timberwolves.com right now, you're on a wait list for season tickets. They're gone. Lower level, I think, is 100% sold. New backcourt club is sold. Lexus club is sold. Upper levels, they've got some spots. But when you have those press releases, guess what? That means people are coming and people care. And for years and years, Wolves have had an incredibly affordable ticket price. We've talked about that before, too. They did raise ticket prices, which they should. It's a much better product now, and it's still very cheap compared to the rest of the NBA. But people are going to notice that. Like, the checks come out every month to pay for these tickets. What do people want to see?
Yeah.
The reason they bought the tickets in the first place, a team that's giving you an honest effort. So it doesn't bother me at all that fans get a little disgruntled or bothered when it's the effort stuff. We obviously know there was going to be an acclimation period to the trade. They made a seismic deal 4 days before training camp. There's going to be some growing pains. But the effort stuff and the detail stuff, like, you can't be excited that everybody's buying these tickets and then be surprised when they show up and don't love what they see.
I think Alan Horton joined us on location about 4:30, and I thought the most compelling point he made was a belief that even if there have been moments of inconsistency on offense and on defense, he believes the solution is offense. He thinks that if everyone is energized offensively, as was the case against Denver, everybody seemed connected offensively against Denver, that you're more likely to get the effort you're hoping for from your more questionable defensive players. And those are my words. He didn't call them questionable. I am. Mm-hmm. But he's talking about Randall, largely, and a couple of other players as well, that if it's going good offensively, it tends to translate over. And I think that's a pretty good point. And recall, a year ago, the beauty of this team was their offense wasn't always great,
right?
But the defense never wavered. Maybe that's not realistic this time around. Maybe they are connected. And a year ago, the offense was statistically not all that good, right? It was the defense that was great. In fact, I think they hoped that this trade, even if you were trading away the best player in the deal in Cat, that you were getting two interesting offensive pieces back, and you might end up being a more efficient offensive team. That's not been the case, but I think he might be right. Whether it should be this way or not, I think you're more likely to get all of your players engaged defensively if you feel like it's going good offensively, and that's a lot of what Conley talked about after the game. Mike Conley, being key is keep getting the ball down court, keep moving the ball, keep having players move as well. And I don't think the rest of the way you can, in any way, shape, or form, discount where Dillingham fits into this thing. I really believe that he's more than the future. I think he has to be part of the solution in the present. I really do, because of the way, the sort of the extra verve that he brings, and it's going to come with some bad plays. It's going to come from getting burned. He's going to get burned defensively a few times. There's no question about that. But he introduces a different element to this team that, frankly, I think they need this year to give themselves the best chance to put something back together, and then maybe even try to make something resembling a playoff run.
Well, the things that we just talked about with energy, effort, attention to detail. I've been in a couple of the Rob Dillingham games, and he's an energy changer. Like, the vibe around this team has not always been good, right? No. You can see the body language. We see the videos of the Randall stuff, but we also see the videos of where the team just looks lifeless. And there's been a few of those. But with Dillingham, I think you can tell other guys like him. I think other guys like playing with them. I think they know they're going to get the ball, which every NBA player
does. He can score, but he passes the ball.
Every NBA player they want the ball. Right. Nas wants the ball. You can tell Nas loves playing with him. Rudy, I think, loves playing with him because he's going to get his lobs. And we'll see. I'm sure Ant likes him too. Ant just did media with him a couple of days ago and stood in his locker and said, "I've been waiting. I came off the bench my rookie year. I was the number 1 pick. Probably had a swear word in there too." But he also changes the energy of the building here, going back to the fans, because he feels like he's a guy that is bringing it all the time, has the juice, has the voltage, whatever you want to call it. And sometimes they do need the energy change and the energy shift. The fact that, Finchie got a lot of heat for taking him out of that Memphis game that we were watching, whatever day that was, Martin Luther King Day, right, a week ago. Watching it Monday, he changed the Memphis game. Then he went out and what happened? They bottomed out. They couldn't get a rebound. They couldn't get a stop, and Memphis stole another game from them. He was out there basically matching the Grizzlies, shot for shot, point for point, whatever you want to call it. So I agree, just because his energy is good, and that this team has not always had that.
This is not baseball season, but there's been baseball in the conversation because of Twins Fest over the weekend. Let's wrap up the program with a rather disturbing, if not all that surprising, Twins nugget that was getting some attention today.
Oh.
We'll wrap up the show with that. Stay tuned.
It's the Bumper to Bumper Show Wrap.
Wrap brought to you by, I think, our good friends at American Pressure, if I'm not mistaken. We always appreciate their fine loyalty to the program.
Commercial-grade pressure washers since 1975.
Very well stated. We are at Target Center, final minutes of today's program. A fan and a man in the air will be followed by the Wolves pregame, and then Wolves taking on the Atlanta Hawks, missing, I believe, 3 starters and a bench player as well. So it's...
people just turned around in the Skyway. They were leaving. They were about to get their tickets scanned.
It. Yeah. It's a great opportunity now that the Wolves have hit a soft part of the schedule to take advantage of it, which they have to do if they're going to put together a winning streak, which we really have not had much of, and start winning some games at home, which has been a big challenge as well. Minnesota Twins, it was Twins Fest over the weekend. We had Rocco in last week. But there's an interesting stat, I don't know if you call it a stat, an analytic, or just a piece of information that might not leave you gobsmacked, but might be interesting confirmation of why this Twins ownership group needs to sell as soon as possible. Can you give us details?
Yeah, this is from something called Brooks Gate, at Brooks_Gate on Twitter. Let me just see who this person is. The handle, or the description of their handle, just says baseball.
Baseball. That's enough for me.
That's it. Has 28,000 followers.
Well, you kind of vetted this with Gleeman as well, correct?
I did. I just said, does this number make sense to you, or does this check out? And he confirmed, yeah, makes sense. And it's the number of dollars in millions, or in some teams' cases, billions, that have been spent by these organizations in free agency, not just this offseason, but last year's offseason as well.
So this would be new money, in effect, correct?
Yes, money that you're not already paying your current players.
So Correa doesn't count, is a good example.
That's a good example, exactly right. Number one, no surprise, the Los Angeles Dodgers have spent the last 2 off seasons, or have it on their books, $1.46 billion. The Mets have spent $1.02 billion.
Which we don't expect the Twins to match.
We don't.
But
the Giants are third with $492 million, so there's a $500 million gap between 2 and 3.
Right.
Coming in at 29th. There's only 30 teams in baseball. Your Minnesota Twins with $8 million ahead of only, are they the Florida Marlins now or the Miami Marlins?
I don't remember.
They're the Marlins, $5 million. So we have outspent the Marlins by $3 million but we have outspent nobody else in Major League Baseball.
So, again, don't let the ball guys say, well, you guys are unrealistic because you can't spend the way the Dodgers, the teams at the top of that list, spent. Forget those teams. Let's just get to a play. I mean, there's a pretty big gap between $8 million and even $100 million, for God's sake. How far down do you have to go to get to $100 million?
15. So the Cardinals are 15th, 108 mil.
Okay.
And then 16, the A's.
Really?
Who are moving to Vegas,
right.
and nobody goes to their games.
Right.
Don't know about their local TV deal in Oakland.
Yeah.
They spent $96 million. Your division, who you're competing against, right, by definition, where are the White Sox? So they're all in the bottom third, basically, essentially. The Tigers have spent 84. The White Sox have spent 58.
That's still, 84 is still basically
You're right.
$75 million more than we've spent.
You're right. I'm sounding like Lavelle here. The Sox,
absurd.
58, and Cleveland, the Guardians, 57. So you're $49 million shy. Well, where's Kansas City? Kansas City's 117. I forgot about the Royals.
Yeah, right.
So the next closest team in your division, the Guardians, are spending $49 million more than you. I think I did that math right.
It's
49,
absurd.
Yeah, 49 plus
that's
8.
what's inexcusable, and that's why, again, nobody's going to care about. We got good stability at least, and we got people. No one. They've got to find somebody, and they've got to find somebody. The faster, the better. And there's no guarantee that the next owner is going to be any better. But I guarantee you, the next owner is not going to allow that number to continue. That even if it's, your average Twins fan would say in the honeymoon period, give me 3 years of the greater aggressiveness. And realistically, from whoever is interested in buying this team, you're going to get that minimum, right? And you might get more, depending on who it is, including the Ishbia twins. Well, not twins, family, brothers, whatever. I don't think they're twins. That's what I think people are clamoring for. And quite frankly, I mean, again, nothing has happened. Nothing has taken place this offseason for the Minnesota Twins.
Nothing, right.
I mean, literally.
And basically, as it was explained to me, that $8 million is your guy Carlos Santana and a couple of random relievers.
Right.
That's what makes up the money.
That's it.
It was a good run.
I mean, so you don't have to get irrational and say you're expecting them to spend, what, $100 million? $200 million? $1 billion? That's not fair. No, we're not asking them to do that. But we're saying those numbers should be an utter embarrassment to anybody who's running a franchise to say, well, that's not even in the ballpark. We can't function that way. We certainly can't rationalize functioning that way on the basis of we didn't get all that $50 million from the regional TV deal. Absurd. So that's where we are.
It is funny how there's two teams that are on, the way it was broken down in that tweet, there's two teams in the left column, the billions. Then there's two big tiers where everybody's obviously San Fran's spending $500 million. But there's two tiers where they're kind of broken down, and then there's two teams in the single digits. One of them, the Marlins, they're a mess. I mean, the Rays, I don't have it pulled up anymore, but the Rays who do nothing. Rocco even said it with you in studio last week. He came from an organization that operated, their whole thing was we've got to get, a dime out of every nickel, right? They're outspending you. The Tampa Bay Rays, not a great ballpark. I'm guessing not a great TV deal. They make their money, no pun intended, on maximizing every single dollar. They have found a way to outspend you, even if it's by $8-9 million.
And that's why, with all due respect to Rocco, who was very complimentary of the poll ads, and might have reason to in terms of the way he's been treated, no fan is going to be interested in that. They're just not. When you look at those kinds of numbers, they are literally inexcusable. They can't be explained away by any financial circumstance, especially when you are indeed talking about, what do we call them, billionaires?
Hey, you're going to the Super Bowl, right? The Kesslers won't go to the Super Bowl, so that's our guy Jason.
Oh, okay. There
Fox
you go.
9.
There you go. Even better. All right, so we're wrapped up here from Target Center. We want to thank Johnny Athletic, who joined us between 3:30 and 4. And we also want to thank Alan Horton, who joined us between 4:30 and 5 o'clock. Back at headquarters tomorrow, Kevin Seifert will join.
Yep.
He's always good because he's reported on a lot of the officiating stuff, so I'm sure we'll get some of that with him tomorrow. Luigi tomorrow a little earlier than usual as well. Is that correct?
That's the rumor.
That's the plan. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We will talk to you tomorrow at 3 o'clock.